Adam Fuller is the master of second half adjustments. That's been the common narrative around Florida State's defense in the 2023 season. How much of that is true? Today on Warchant TV, we talk to Warchant lead football analyst Dominic about what differences he is seeing as the game goes from first quarter all the way to fourth quarter.
What I'm seeing is, to be honest, man, I'm seeing brilliance in terms of a coaching approach. I'm seeing brilliance in terms of knowing and understanding who you have, what your personnel is, what you do well, and really just weathering, like I said, sort of. I think it appears that Adam Fuller is taking sort of a boxer's approach to the game, and hey, we gotta fight for 12 rounds. So I'm not going to just come out here and throw a bunch of haymakers in the first 2-3 rounds and then have nothing down the stretch. I'm going to make sure that we have confidence in our guys to weather your best punch, and we know we have the depth to throw punches in the later rounds, either with our best guys or even with our 13th, 14th, 15th best defensive player. And you can see that. That there's an approach, and I wouldn't necessarily call it passive, but I would just say that it is an approach that is assessing your angle of attack. So right here, this is the first play of the game right here. You'll see, Florida essentially comes out in a trip set or a bunch set. Here they're in tight, but you can still see Florida State has 4 defenders, right here, that are, essentially playing their 3. And, so this is, we're not worried about what you're going to do in the run game. We're going to play it, we're going to assess sort of where you're at. And if you just watch as this ball snapped, you can actually see a bunch of guys. You don't see like any penetration. And so all these 4 guys are playing these 3, and you can see that nobody is really penetrating or attacking up front. Okay, you can watch this safety here up top, 38. When the ball gets to the line of scrimmage, he's still about 6 yards deep. Okay, so what we're saying here is we're gonna let you do what you do, and we're just gonna see what you got. Okay, we're just gonna weather this punch. We're gonna see, you're gonna throw a jab. Okay, you're gonna throw a jab here. You can see the corner up top. He's sort of reading that end, the tight end up there, and he's kind of seeing, okay, is he blocking? We're going to see, are they going to pump or go play action or something over the top? But you see just a lot of guys that are, I don't want to necessarily say they're catching, because they're not catching, but they're just not sort of playing aggressively downhill. Even the linebackers are getting blocked at about 2 yards depth. Now you'll go to a third quarter snap, similar formation. You'll see these safeties. You got both safeties now, when the ball snapped, at the same depth that they were, once the ball got to the line of scrimmage on the first play of the game. Ball is handed off, and there's penetration by 15. You'll see the end is now playing aggressively to play the reverse or the jet sweep if that were going to be handed off. You just see a bunch of guys that are really penetrating, playing aggressively, getting downhill. You've got essentially a safety blitz. This is a run blitz. Very common technique that he used this past week. On 46% of the snaps, there was some sort of run blitz that was called, either a run blitz, or it could have been a pass pressure, just depending on what the offense did. But there's just a lot more aggression. You could see, like, linebackers are now, taking gaps. They're not waiting. And I'll show this from the tight. You'll see these linebackers here when this ball snapped. So they're running a cross dog, and I'll explain what that is on another clip. But one linebacker has one A gap. So one has one side of the center, and the other linebacker has the other. And so, you can see this just plays out absolutely perfectly, with 15 getting penetration, making that ball cut back to the other A gap player, which is number 4. And, and now they've got him completely bottled up with the tackle for a minimal gain.
46% is a hell of a number, Dominic, because
Yeah.
earlier this season, when you were breaking down Florida State's numbers, I think they were blitzing a quarter of the time, which was pretty passive, relatively speaking, to the rest of college football. That's a humongous number relative to what Florida State had been doing earlier in the season. What do you make of that?
Both the Florida and the Miami game, the run blitz or really just pressure numbers went through the roof in relation to Florida State. They had typically been pressuring somewhere around 20 to 25%. Both of those games was at 46%. One was 45.9, the other was 46.1.
Wow.
And so what I'm seeing and thinking is that it's young quarterbacks. It's understanding the time and the time period in which now it's time to go. We're at that point in the season where now I feel all of my guys are completely competent in their assignments, and we're just going to be able to cut them loose and let them get after guys. So here was another early snap. Early in the first quarter, Florida comes out in another. This is a trip set, but they're in 11 personnel. So, again, Florida State essentially, dedicates 4 over 3. So it's not an aggressive, heavy box. And, and this would be a win for the offense. And again, you'll see, this is early. You'll see linebackers who are sort of waiting and assessing. You will see, guys up front aren't necessarily penetrating, getting upfield. There's no blitz called here. And Florida essentially has the numbers as they have, a tight end, and Florida State, is playing their linebacker number 4 here is outside of the box. So they have 5 in the box and they have 5 to block, or 6 to block. Sorry. So they have numbers to run this ball. We give them the numbers and they take it and they get a good gain on it. All right. Now this is later in the game, third quarter. You'll see Florida comes out in 11 personnel again. And now you can just even see the posture of the players. This is a single safety. The safety is now down. We don't have 2 safeties high. The boundary safety there is down. You see the linebackers are running this cross dog, sort of a run blitz, a run, an aggressive run posture. The one backer's taking one A gap, the other backer's taking the other A gap. This was one of my favorite plays of the game, and part of it was at this point, this guy down here, both these coaches, they feel like they got themselves a great play. You see him pointing down here. I love this as a player and as a coach. One of my favorite things was, I didn't even notice this guy down here too. This player, he thinks they got a touchdown. He's got both arms up.
He does.
There's nothing better. I love that. I love taking their heart. I love it when guys think they got something, when they're excited about something. And if you look at this play, it does look like it. Right now, they've got one-on-one. They essentially have a ball carrier on a guy that's 10 yards deep. Number 8 does a phenomenal job playing with speed, aggression, sheds the block, and makes this tackle. This should have been a huge positive play for the other team, and it wasn't. It was just a 2-yard gain. The other coach wants a flag and all this stuff.
Put your arm down.
Yeah. So here's a better look at the cross dog. You'll see number 4 is going to work himself to the A gap, to the opposite A gap. This is going to cause a problem with the blocking, and this guy's going to work to the other A gap. So this kind of gives you a better feel. There's number 10 there is going to work to the A gap. 15's coming across, but you see all of these gaps are all canceled out, and you'll just see a bunch of white jerseys are penetrating and are in the backfield. It's a lot different than the last snap that I just showed you. They still have themselves a good play. They just have one guy that they need to block. If I'm an offensive coach, I like my chances right here. I've got one guy to block, and I've got one guy that's 10 yards deep and my ball carrier. And this is where these are the things this is where recruiting comes in. Yeah, I got to recruit a guy, number 8, that's better than this guy trying to block him, number 89. Because no matter what I do from a scheme standpoint, defensively, this is beautifully done from a scheme standpoint. Every single gap is canceled out. but eventually a guy's got to make a play. There's so many things because, yes, this is a cover one. So like I showed you, these guys are in aggressive posture. I know that they're in a cover one because that safety is down. Okay, that number 38 there that's up at the top. So he's in cover one. The corner down here at the bottom, his hips are square. His eyes are on the man. So that's cover one. It's a one high safety here. It's absolutely cover one. The ball is snapped. He's got to recognize at this point when that guy makes contact and he's blocking now, he has to make a decision. Do I guard my man or do I go make a play? So yes, there's a lot of things going on here where a guy has to make a play. And this is where, like I said, recruiting comes into play, man. You got to recruit the right guys because eventually a guy's got to be fast. He's got to be strong. He's got to be able to run, and he's got to have some smarts to him. And so that is absolutely a phenomenal play by him and a good example of the aggression that the front is playing with in later snaps as opposed to earlier in the game when they're sort of catching blows and assessing what the offense is trying to do to them. So here's another example of really just a really well-coached team. And then guys executing. One of the things that I would say is with Adam Fuller is there's incredible strength in his variability. So no offensive coach can just sit in an offensive meeting room right now and tell their guys, hey, when we line up in this, they're going to do that. Okay, so here's an example of this. Right now, you can see, they're in 20 personnel, so that's two backs. And, here's their tight end right here, so he's going to come in. These guys are communicating right off the bat. Okay, number 4 does a tremendous job of this, but you can see, look, both linebackers are communicating. The corner down here, the safety up top is trying to figure out down here in a one-on-one situation, or do we want to help them? That's essentially what they're trying to figure out. That's why this backer is looking at him, and that's why this safety is looking at him. They're trying to decide, how are we handling the solo side? How are we handling the single side? You can see right now, Ford lets him know that guy comes in tight, and they decide. You can see 38 will kind of wave him off, and he's letting 20 know, hey, you're by yourself. You have no help. I'm helping on the run here. I'm going to come down aggressively. You don't have help. I'm coming down to show up. Earlier, I showed a clip when the ball was handed off or when the ball got to the line of scrimmage. That safety was at about 6 yards depth. This ball never even quite gets to the line of scrimmage, but you would say as it approaches the line of scrimmage, this safety's at 3.5 yards depth. In addition to every single gap is canceled out by a defensive lineman. This is where you feel really good about what you have up front, and not even needing to run the cross dogs that I showed earlier. Because if I can handle it with these 4 and I don't need to add the backer to the A gap, you've got yourself something special. Those guys are just, everything right here. This is as good of a football play as you could ever ask for from a defensive standpoint. And these are why you weather those blows early, is to figure out this type of information. And, so it's not necessarily that we're playing passive or soft. It's I'm going to let you throw punches so that I can now assess what I need to do to attack. So now in this case, I know as I'm number 38, I can tell the corner, hey, you're by yourself. We're not worried about them. Early on, we're going to play it. We're going to play it a little bit safer to let them show us how they're going to attack it. But later on, now I can make the right call to get us in the right defense. I can cancel out gaps up front, and we know we're going to have ourselves a good football play. And that's exactly why you take the approach that you do early, is just to allow the offense to show you who they are and what they're going to be later, and then you can take advantage of it.
Seems like a high wire act, the balance between, like a fan would say, you're not firing off the ball early in the game because they see that the offensive line surge or they see a play surge. And it seems like, quote unquote, D-Rob, this is what you would hear on the message boards or in the chat, they weren't ready to play. But you're telling me that they're walking a fine line between trying to get off the field, but then also fact-finding early on in games.
Absolutely. And that's where I would say Adam Fuller has done such a phenomenal job of sort of doing that dance, having that chess match because you can't, me as an offensive coach, I can't really put my finger on who they are, what they are, where they're going to be. And that makes it really hard for me to call plays. I just have to kind of call a general play and hope that it's the right one, because I can't tell my guys for sure that guy's going to be right there and he's going to be doing this. And that makes it tough. And getting that right as a defensive coach is not easy, especially with how much shifting and motioning that offenses do now. And he's really, really handled it. I mean, these guys are well coached up, man. They, like I said on that last play, you can see them communicating. It's all getting communicated very well. There's very few busts throughout the year, and guys are playing fast. That's a lot. All these clips, I say, one of the things that's present in all these clips is guys flying to the ball. Guys are flying around. They're playing fast, and that's a great sign that they know the plan, they understand the plan, and they're ready to execute. So here's another example of an adjustment that was made in the second half. Really, you started to see this cross dog blitz that I talked about earlier, which is just the two inside backers are both going to take the A gaps. Here, this becomes a really tough adjustment because they're running a jet sweep or a fly motion that's going to cross the face. So what you'll see right here is number 10 make an adjustment and decide, I'm just going to stay front side, which is a gap exchange. He's going to exchange his A gap with number 15, who now realizes, okay, you're taking that gap, so now I have to fold back. And you'll see the problem that this causes for the offensive player is that he realizes at this point he has the A gap, the opposite A gap, going away from the split zone. And he thinks that 38 is the only guy that's going to be a problem. And 38 could be a problem here. But at this point, now you've got two guys that are a problem because 15 folds back and makes a great play. And even the tackle here on the front side, the defensive tackle finally sheds the double team, or that's the backer actually sheds the block and shows up on that play. I'll show this from the wide. As you see, again, you're seeing great communication here with 8 as he's running across. You actually, I really like this clip too, is that you can see the secondary guys realizing, hey, I got to make a switch. And this is where, these things are really important. When you're a good team playing a team that's not so good, a lot of times this is where the mistakes happen. It's not whether they can beat you down in and down out. It's, can you make the communication things, the small details, to not bust? And one bust can really hurt you bad. And so, so that's just beautiful to see. You also, again, you see the aggression getting off the ball. You see guys penetrating. You see a single safety coming down, ready to help. And when I showed on the tight how 38 was there to cancel out the B gap there. If 15 wasn't going to be in the A gap, or if that ball was going to spit outside the A gap. So all run gaps are canceled out. This is it's just signature defense. It's great defense, and it's how you can win games. So, a lot of games, how you win 12 games to be exact, and hope to make it 13 on Saturday.
You've got to have instincts, I would think, Dominic, if you're number 15 Tatum Bethune in that situation.
Absolutely. That's definitely coached. But it does in real time. This thing's happening really, really fast.
Right.
And obviously these guys are moving fast and they're strong as heck, and you're tired. So, there's a lot more than just it's not as easy as, hey man, if I'm over here, you just go over there. It's like, but I'm coached to be over here and I'm tired as hell. So yeah, there's a lot of instinct that plays into that. Obviously linebacker is such an instinctual position. And so you gotta have a good feel for that. And one of the reasons why I wanted to show that play was the difficulty of that is way higher than what they make it look. He made it look like that was an easy thing to do. And I'm telling you right now, at full speed, it's not.
So we're talking about, this will be the final thing for this week. The numbers are the numbers, and it's unreal. I think you have some basic yards per play comparisons in terms of, first half versus total yards per play the defense gives up. But it's drastic, Dominic, the difference between first half and second half performances for Adam Fuller and his defense. Again, a common narrative outside the game would be nobody's better at halftime adjustments than Adam Fuller. The halftime adjustments he makes are incredible. Is that a myth, or does he have a plan already for the second half? Does the fact finding from playing a little bit more off or passive early on inform him to make the adjustments? Like, everybody loves to talk about a halftime adjustment in the halftime desk on like ABC or ESPN. How real is that from a coaching perspective?
It's very real. It's very real, and a lot of coaches really pride themselves in that. Some coaches really feel like that's where the game is. To be honest with you, a lot of coaches will, not that they don't game plan and whatnot, but a lot of coaches set themselves up for their halftime adjustment. So we're going to do certain things to see where they're at, and then at halftime we're going to go. These are the adjustments we're going to make, and that's where we're going to get them. Obviously, you can't win the game until you play 60 minutes, and so those last 30, not that they're more important, but those are when games are won and lost. So guys do a really good job of it, and so 6.9 yards per play is the worst yards per play in the country. It's like that would make you 135 or whatever. Florida State is giving up 6.7 yards per play in the first half of games. Which is just mind-blowing to think that a 12-0 team is doing that. What that means is in the second half, their number of yards per play has got to be incredibly, incredibly low, because for the season, they're giving up 4.8 yards per play, which is 15th or 16th in the country.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the thought of giving up 6.7 in one half and then 3 point something in the second half of games, when most of those games you've already won and your backups are in, is just it's just a dominant thing. And it tells you that the adjustments that they're making, or really just, it may not even be adjustments, it may just be a simple approach. It's winning games, obviously. It's winning them battles. It tells you about the depth. It tells you about the approach or the scheme or the mindset. It tells you so much about the players, the coaches, the program, to have that dominant of second halves. You're right there behind. Bama is number 14, I believe, and then Georgia's number 15 in terms of yards per play. So you're right there with the best in the country, or I guess the guys that are typically there in, the conversation of best defenses in the country. And you're doing that with having these suboptimal first halves. And so you have to look at the game as a complete picture. And when you do that, I know a lot of people probably are upset, or they're bothered by that and think, well, why don't you do that for 60 minutes? And if it was that simple, it obviously would be done. But there's information, like you said earlier, there's fact finding that you have to go and see before I can throw the punch, because I don't want to leave myself subject to getting knocked out. I don't want to try to throw this punch, not having the information, and then you hit me in the temple, and now I'm on the canvas unconscious, and I can't get back up. I have to have the information before I throw the punch. Now, once I get the information, now it's time to do war. But until I get that information, I got to see where you're at. I got to know that you're susceptible to that punch that I want to throw when I want to throw it. And I've got to know that, again, I know that I have 12 to 22 guys who can throw that punch, and you only have 11. And that's where, forever, that's what made Florida State so great, was their depth on defense. You could play two first teams, and other teams just would drown with the waves of defensive linemen that they were throwing at them.
one of the most drastic examples of the season was against Florida. When you saw the way that Florida State was flying around on the ball defensively, you wouldn't have known that they ran only 3 plays on offense in the first quarter with the way they finished the game. It's been a fascinating watch today, learning from Dominic Robinson, lead football analyst here at warchant.com, Warchant TV. If you enjoyed the lesson, hit the thumbs up underneath the video. Subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. We are in ACC Championship Week. If Florida State gives up a couple things in the first half, D-Rob is telling you, take it easy. It's all right. It's not ideal, but they're learning. And once they learn and they adapt, they dominate. So look for that this weekend. Dominic, thank you very much. Hopefully we are reconvening for a playoff breakdown after this weekend.
Go Noles.